Hello there. My name is David Taylor, and as many of you know, I am a director at IAB. And this is the latest in a series of videos that we've been doing every month, which is going out in our newsletter, and which, of course, is available on our YouTube channel. Last month, we spoke about the practice growth framework that we are using within IAB. In a nutshell, we know that you, as members, fall into roughly one of four different categories. You're either going to be starting out, a sole trader, you are transitioning to becoming a business, and of course, then you are an established business. And what we're trying to do is obviously bring in some of the member benefits that we have here at IAB and illuminating those member benefits and how they can really help you in your practice on a day-to-day basis. So I'm really very pleased today that I have with me Tush, who is the co-founder of Capium. Hi there,
David.
Tush. Thank you for joining us.
Good to be here.
Um, and yeah, I think you've been a member benefit for quite a while now, haven't you, with IAB?
I think it's coming up to about 9 months now, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. So it's been an exciting period for us.
I think you would have started around account about the time of Accountex last year.
That's right. We did. I seem to remember Accountex was, I think, our launch with IAB,
Yes.
if
Yeah.
I remember correctly.
A good place and a good
Good
time
play.
to launch, and it's unbelievably Accountex is rolling around very soon.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So obviously Capium is a software provider, and you have a specialized piece of software for financial professionals. I, I think I've been very privileged to have a lot of interesting conversations with people in and around IAB, and we're looking at how the finance professions are changing because of technology and because of AI, what is happening in the general marketplace, both domestically and globally. And I think it's fair to say that software really is coming into its own now. What was your entry point into the market, and how have you got to the position you're in with Capium at the moment?
So it's a really interesting story, actually. So my background was I had previously run a separate business that actually went through acquisition, and it was at that point where I sat down with my co-founder, actually, who helped within that last business, Sanjay, with our accountant, and saw the makeup of kind of like his business at the time, his practice at the time. We saw one thing for bookkeeping, another thing for payroll, another thing for tax and accounts. I don't even really want to go into what he had for practice management back then, but it was just literally just like a spreadsheet and a notebook just to keep on top of everything. And it really just dawned upon us that, this was 2012, 13, roughly around then. Surely there's a better way and of working and a more seamless way of working because he was moving, I guess, really just exporting data and then uploading it in somewhere else. And it was all desktop-based environments. So that's really primarily where the idea came from to bring in and offer an ecosystem within a cloud-based environment where the data flowed from one aspect of the service to the other aspect. So we created that as modules. Um, and from that, if you wanted to provide access to your customers, you can do. And I think really that's where our kind of mantra and our slogan has come from of capture, connect, and collaborate. So you can capture the data a lot quicker from your customers, connect it through the modules, and then collaborate with them with the final end product as well. I think we should add in probably a fourth C to that, which is control, which is all about the accountant being in control of everything. And our mission's always been to solve the accountant's pain point.
Excellent. And I think that's a very valid point, is that all of these pieces of software, it's about trying to solve pain points. But equally, I know that a number of well, quite a large number of professionals are still quite, wouldn't say tech averse, but they're nervous about integration, APIs, moving from a well-known system to another. If I am I guess if I am a bookkeeper or an accountant, and I'm slightly nervous, given what you've said, makes absolute sense to me. It's practice management, integrating all the systems in one place. You can manage it very easily, so you're saving time and money, etc. But what advice would you say for maybe the more risk averse finance professional who might be slightly nervous about moving away from a pre-existing system?
Yeah, look, I give you an example with quite a few of our customers, and whether or not they're small, medium, or large. The mantra that we've always had with them has been build that trust. So if you want to start slowly. We need to earn your trust, just like you know, and vice versa, really. So the idea here is get used to it. We are here to help you. You know, much as you know, we don't want to have a leaky bucket, if you want to call it that. Much as you know, you join us, and you know, you can also leave us. So our mantra has been to avoid that. So let's build that trust with you. Start slowly. I'd probably even say if you're coming towards the end of your subscription with your incumbent or midway through your subscription and are thinking about this, you know, we'd work with you to take out a smaller subscription, start very small, with the idea you get used to it. By the time you need to push the button, for example, you're in a position of confidence, and really you've got that knowledge of knowing what to do next. With regards to obviously moving over, you know, that's part and parcel of what we do. We help you with the transition. We do 90-day onboardings. We offer data migration as well behind the scenes. The idea here is we're here to make sure that you come on board and stay with us rather than obviously have a problem. And even if you did have a problem, we've got support and account managers to help you through it and navigate through that.
Excellent. So I guess the customer service is key here.
Yeah,
And I think that's always one of the big complaints against software providers. It's just like once you're in the system, it's like you've signed up, and then it's like
I
there's no
think
one there to help.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, really, to be honest with you, because from our perspective, whilst the brand is a lot smaller than some of the others out there, more recognizable, we've had to build that trust. And for us, it's always been about making sure that our service levels are high, and making sure that we can build upon it and organically grow as we go along.
Excellent. So as I said earlier, we've got a whole range of members, and the point of these videos is obviously to try and be as inclusive as we can with our membership. And so, as I said, you've got a whole range of members being looked after. Clearly, Capium can be used in different ways, and it can be scaled depending on the size of your organization. Would you be able to take me through perhaps people joining at the very lower level of using Capium, and maybe if we can transition through to how it could potentially, assist some of the very larger firms who might be using this particular software?
Yeah, absolutely. When we first started, that was our target market. It's not our target market necessarily. Those were the sort of attractions that we were, I guess, really bringing to us. Where there were part-time accountants burning the midnight oil for friends and family, for example, and looking to grow their own business out at the same time. And from that, what they had taken out was perhaps maybe bookkeeping, and payroll, for example, which are obviously pretty much mandates for carrying out service works. Once they've actually sort of got to that point where they've got the data, they've put the data online, they've uploaded it or given access to their customers. What then would happen is they may turn around to us and say, "Hey, look, we're coming towards final accounts season. Can we look at obviously getting a trial of the final accounts module, accounts production module?" We'd obviously train them, show them a demo, show them how to use it. And as long as they're happy with it, what they'll do is we'll unlock it for them. that the data from the bookkeeping can then easily migrate over to the accounts production module. Once they do, they actually get their accounts preparation correctly. What can then happen is you can bolt on the corporation tax module, so you can take that out at the same time, create the CT600s. And whilst you're doing all of this, there's a two-way synchronization between the two. So it can pass as a journal back into the accounts preparation as well. And so I guess really what you're seeing here is you don't have to buy the full suite. You
Right.
can take out what you need as you grow. Even if you're sort of like starting and you've got a pain point of, let's say, bookkeeping and payroll right now, and then potentially just grow as your business starts to grow, all your service requirements require it as well.
So in the same way, we have a scalability framework. You
Correct.
equally have a piece of software can scale with someone. So from being almost part-time finance professional right through to having a very sophisticated accountancy firm where you really want to integrate as many systems as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key here is, it's going back to the point, is building that trust and confidence. Once you've got that, then obviously we can unlock whatever you want really from the platform, the ecosystem.
So have you got a couple of examples of people who've used Capium? Maybe if you could pick an example of perhaps a smaller organization, maybe someone who's a sole trader or maybe a very, very small practice. And have you got also an example from maybe a larger firm who uses Capium?
Yeah, the one that comes to mind, he started with us probably about what are we 2025 now, about 20, he started in 2015. As I mentioned to you before, we the initial sort of uptake of KPM back in the early stages were the sort of part-time accountants burning midnight oil. He came on board with us. He only had two clients at the time, but he was doing this for friends and family and then looking to build out. The thing about that was he was working out of hours as well. So, for example, he was working about like I guess really 2, 3 in the morning. Okay, doing these preparation work for his
Right.
customers, for his clients. Um, Whilst he was doing that, he'd obviously had the cloud. He had everything there to be able to get going. And by the time he'd say raise tickets or anything else for that matter, or any support that he required, our team was working around the clock anyway, so they'd be able to be on hand to actually help him through and navigate through the problems.
Wow.
Um, the flip side to that, we had a customer who was with a large incumbent and spending, well, a loss of cash, shall we say. And he had about 3,000 customers, 3,000 clients, and I think he's grown after that as well. And I signed him up back in 2015. The quote that he used, believe it or not, David, was, "Don't get me wrong, Tish. If I can get from A to B in the car, and I can no, let me start again. Don't get me wrong, Tish. If I can get from A to B in a Ford car, and I can help you fine tune that engine, then we're all happy." I went back to him, I think it was about 8 years later, and I said to him, "So are we still a Ford car?" And he actually turned around to me and said, "No, I think you're more like a BMW now." So we've taken the feedback, we've
Yeah.
continued to grow. There's been a lot of enhancements and release processes that have taken place in the process throughout the whole time as well.
But it's nice to get feedback from that because I
Yeah,
think that there's often again this concern around software is that people create a great piece of software and it seems to get worse as the years go by. So it's lovely to get feedback that it's actually got better, and I think that clearly um, the nature of our business is changing so dramatically now that I think that anything which can speed up or facilitate better working practices for finance professionals has got to be an absolute no-brainer.
absolutely.
And I think um, it's it's almost imperative, I would say, that people at least look at what software is available. And I think some people, I think particularly men, can often get quite stuck in their ways. Um, do you, we often find at IAB that a lot of the people who are maybe looking for new ways of working or have got a more open-minded are actually female-led businesses. Have you got a breakdown of the sort of the male-female split using Capium?
We do have a lot of females. If I was to put a percentage on that, it's very difficult for us to say because obviously we track it from practice level aspects. But looking at sort of like the names and what have you, I'd say there's a good 50-50 split. I would say. You can see that just because of they could be staff members, might not necessarily be sort of like sole practitioners or anything like that. They could be working for a larger firm. But we do see a lot of uptake from that angle, really, to be honest with you. And long may it continue.
Excellent. So if let's say I'll slightly put you on the spot there. So maybe let's try and track those different quadrants of what our membership might be. So if I am potentially, let's say I'm looking to set up, I'm in the process of setting up as a sole trader, bookkeeper or an accountant. Um, would you say it's almost try and figure out putting Capium in at the very beginning rather than maybe go with another provider and then think, okay, when I scale, I might need them. When's the earliest you think someone should be using Capium or thinking about using Capium?
From the start,
Yep.
um, from a pricing perspective, we work with them. We have a startup package as well. If you speak to any of the sales guys, they will create a micro package for you to get
Right.
going. It's considered our startup package. And then obviously as you grow, that potentially then unlocks into sort of like the next levels and go from there. You've got nothing to lose, from that perspective. And especially given, let's say, the current cost crisis that we're looking at going forward. You touched on the point, David, about integrations. These all cost money
Mm.
when you start bringing into another software. If you can try and consolidate as much as you can within one ecosystem as possible, you've got
Yep.
less risk of, let's say, support queries that have been bounced from one place to another. You can forecast your costs better
Mm.
rather than obviously if you take on another client, you've then got to look at potentially other costs that you've got to bring on
Yep.
board as well. These all need to be thought about. And I guess really probably the big thing about it is if your costs start to spiral out of control, you're potentially looking at spilling that onto your clients as well to maintain obviously your profit margins going forward. Here, you know what you're getting
Mm.
from the start, unless obviously you're growing out of that tier, which potentially means you're doing really, really well. So those are big factors that I think you really need to consider. And going back to your point, start from the beginning. There's nothing to lose.
Yes, it's a very valid point you make, and I think it's my background is in marketing, and it's in a way it's the same issue there, which people have got so many different products, and trying to keep track of all of them terms of using them and also the cost of them, it all becomes so cumbersome that it becomes almost impossible to manage. And I guess the same goes for financial management. So I think that is a very valid point you made about having everything in one place. But also what impresses me is also the scalability. So you could start small and have a very, very basic package, and then you can keep adding the modules as they need to. But also equally, I think, and you raised it earlier, is the absolute importance about having decent customer service, which, let's face it, most software products don't have. Um, I know from bitter experience, and particularly again from my background in marketing, you're trying to talk to someone at Meta, and
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah. Yeah,
impossible.
we've I think for us when we started the business and continued the culture has always been set with all staff members. The customer comes first. If there's a
Mm.
problem, they're contacting us, then that means there's a problem there that we need to look at fixing, not just for that particular that instance, but as a root problem as well going forward. And that mantra's just been with us as well because, yeah, look, to be fair, we don't have the grand marketing budget. We've been working on making sure that we can build that trust with our customers, and we have done. We've got 2,500 members
Mm.
who utilize Capium. But why do they stay? One of the main reasons that comes out on our testimonials is the support that we put behind the scenes for them.
Which is great to hear. So I think, so in summation, the advice is that, if you're setting out, then when you're planning your business, you're almost planning all your systems, and therefore, it's like the old-fashioned computers. They used to have lots and lots of empty ports,
Yeah.
and you could obviously put stuff in there, but at least it's a lot easier than if you had a motherboard which had no expansion ports on it. It's the same thing as if you're starting out in business, you're planning for the future all the time. I think also very valid point you mentioned, which was about the integrations. And if you're trying to manage a whole range of different softwares and systems, it can get very cumbersome and very difficult. Equally, it's great to have a provider of software who is there to support and nurture, who understands you and understands your background and understand, as you said, you've grown from working with people who are one man or one woman bands and doing tax returns in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
So you've been there, done it, and got the t-shirt. It's not like, we don't really understand our audience. You do definitely understand the audience. But I think, in concluding, I mean, I think it's very valuable, and thank you very much for your time today. Apart from certainly taking a look at Capium, and it's you're available in the IAB members area, and that there's a whole range of resources. Do you have any sort of final sort of pieces of advice for any of our members in terms of getting the most out of software?
Do your due diligence, make sure you do the training and the demonstrations. Go on there equipped with questions that you want answered. Make sure you're fulfilling a pain point that you have, and you're not just taking out something that is nice to have as
Yep.
well. That because that nice to have could be something that is, we keep coming back to the cost aspect, but it's quite prevalent in this current climate with regards to what's going on. And make sure that you're happy before you jump into it. It's never a case of and I guess really, it shouldn't be daunting. Make sure that you've looked at others as well and just feel comfort with getting the answers to the questions that potentially keep you up at night.
Excellent. Great piece of advice. And it's been an absolute pleasure to see you today.
No,
Thank you very much for your time. And for all you members who are listening, certainly do take a look at Capium. And if any of you are going to be going to Accountex, will you be going to Accountex this
I
year?
will be there. I will be
So
there.
please collar Tush, and any further questions you've got, I'm sure he'll be very, very pleased to answer it. So thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next month.